Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the upper tier, and once it is Monday, we know it's the Monday mashup. Joining me tonight from the Chelsea Roar, no doubt, Ian the Dynamo Kelly. How are we, Ian?
How are you, brother? Thanks for having me on.
Not a bother at all. Great to have you on. Where do we begin with this? What a weekend of football, to say the least. But we'll run down quickly through the results. Some really interesting results in terms of the top four race and also in terms of the relegation battle. So we started on Friday night, Newcastle with a big win over Wolves 1-0. Then we got into the lunchtime game, and we'll come back to this. Everton 1, Man United 0. Arsenal 1, Brighton 2. Southampton 0, Chelsea 6. Should have hung on to a few of them for tomorrow night. There was no rush in using them all up. Watford 0, Leeds 3. Aston Villa 0, Tottenham 4. Aston Villa on a bit of a slide at the moment, getting tapped up a bit. Then we went into Sunday. Brentford 2, West Ham 0. Leicester 2, Palace 1. Norwich 2, Burnley 0. And we rounded out the weekend with the title race, the cider apparently, which finished Man City 2, Liverpool 2. Let's go back. We'll start. Everton 1, Man United 0. We don't have any Man United contingent on tonight. Let's say Mark's busy and Darren's busy. I don't know where we begin with this. It was an absolute dreadful performance. I think United were in control for the first 15 minutes or so, and then they just wilted away. And once Everton got that goal, albeit a great shot from Gordon, but was deflected in off Harry Maguire. And I'm sort of at the stage now where Harry Maguire, if he was sitting on the subs bench, he'd probably deflect something in. He's that unlucky now with United. What was your thinking on that one?
You just listen with I don't get the love in with Harry Maguire also. You know what I mean? Like you'll have some fans come out defending him. You'll have majority of the fans coming out and saying, look, he's actually tripe. And then you've Gareth Southgate who still, swears by him. So I've said it multiple times on this podcast, and like you said there, we're kind of united less tonight. There's probably a few fans here that are going, "Oh, we got the Chelsea boy instead." It's going to be all Chelsea talk, but I promise you that won't be the case. But we'll have a little less United talk as usual, probably in terms of how the game went. Look, if Darren was here, he'd probably say the same, or Mark. Like, it's just beyond defending at this point, isn't it? That's what Harry Maguire is, beyond defending, because he can't defend. Don't know what he adds to the team. I've yet to see it. We saw a little bit of it at Leicester, but did it warrant 80 million or whatever it was? No. I don't see how the guy can consistently play and be called the United captain. When you look at the pictures of him and Ronaldo, and you look at a Harry Maguire giving Ronaldo instructions, you're just going, it's on Ronaldo's face saying, fuck off.
Yeah, well, I kind of listened. There was an interesting stat came out today that I was listening to. And to the day 3 years ago, I think it was, United got beaten by Everton 4-0. And Solskjaer, after that game, came out and said that there'd be a number of players that play today that wouldn't be in the Man United side going forward. And the interesting stat from that 3 years on is there's still 9 of those players in the Man United squad, and 6 of those players played the other day. And I thought that was what would you say, like a sad indictment on the development of Man United, probably under Solskjaer. But I don't know. I mean, what have you made of Ranić? I mean, Ranić came in and there was all this kind of fuzz about it that, he was the kind of the creator of the Gegenpress, and he laid the foundation for the likes of Klopp and Tuchel and stuff like that and all. And he seemed to get thrust into this interim position, which put him in a very difficult position, really, because as we know, interim managers, it's just a disaster at most clubs, no matter where you are. But he's come in, and it seems now that they're moving a little bit away from the fact that they're going to even use him as a consultant, that he's going to be kind of really from a distance as opposed to being in an office upstairs, if you like. But safe to say, I mean, the results have been really, really poor. And to me, looking at that Everton game the other day, it seems like those players have checked out at this stage, that they've decided there's a new manager coming in, albeit in May or June or whenever it happens. It looks like it's going to be Eric Ten Hag. And they've checked out. They've no desire to fight for top four. They'd be lucky if they end up in top six. I don't think any of them fancy the Europa League. So it looks like those players at the moment are playing that they'd be happier to be in eighth than they would be to be in fifth and sixth. But it's a strange conundrum for them because they also know there's a number of players leaving. They also know if they don't make Champions League, I would expect Ronaldo to leave because he ain't got much left in the tank, and I'm sure he wants to play Champions League football for his last couple of years or whatever it is. They also need a central defender. They need a CDM, and that's not taken into account, replacing players that are there on the bench, the likes of Mata, Lingard. I mean, bringing Mata on the other day. I mean, Mata was barely relevant in 2013, and this is 2022. So it's just strange there in total, you know what I mean? It's just a weird one, and hard to understand. And now you have Ten Hag coming in, who's going to have a massive rebuild job, which I don't think he'll get done in even maybe 2 or 3 windows, because I don't think the Glazers are the type to go out and just bring in 4, 5, 6 players.
Well, look, in Rangnick's defense, he's had to come in and work with the same group of players that we've been talking about under Solskjaer, that he mentioned that wouldn't be there, whatever, 9 of them wouldn't be playing there in 3 years and they're still playing. Was that an exact quote, was it?
Which?
Yeah, the Solskjaer quote, saying like that there was certain
players. That's an exact quote. It's basically I think it's either 3, it must be 3 years to the day, because I think he was only there 3 years. So it must be 3 years to nearly the date when Everton bet them 4-0. And that was the comment that was made.
So it lends itself then to, the Dazzlers theory and Greg's theory and, Mark's theory and all the United fans' theory that are kind of open-minded about it and not just with the blinkers on, that this ownership quite clearly doesn't really give a fuck, and they throw money at a problem, but it's in the wrong, it's like saying we have a leak at the back of the boat. Grand, let's make the front of the boat look fucking spectacular, so we go and get Ronaldo, and that'll appease them. But all the while, the leak is still at the back, and it's gonna sink eventually. And I think that's essentially what we're, where we're at now. I'm sorry, I think United need 2 defenders, because Maguire ain't gonna cut it. I don't think he's a top level defender. I don't think he's, you know what I mean?
What do you reckon's happened to him? Because I mean, he was an exceptional defender at Leicester, and I mean,
that's where it was going.
You know what I mean? You don't get a price tag of 80 million, by not putting in a shift and not putting in performances. And even when he went into United first, he was kind of decent enough, you know what I mean? He wasn't rubbish.
Was he ever an 8 out of 10 though, consistently? I think the answer to that is no. And I mean,
I think he was at Leicester. I think he was.
Oh yeah, but at United, this is what I'm saying. The boy, it's not the boy's fault that he was bought for 80 million. It's not his fault that he was bought for 80 million. I think he was at a level. It's like you look at a Jamie Vardy, right? We'll never know the answer, but say Jamie Vardy had went to Arsenal. What if hypothetically he didn't cut the mustard, and that's his place? There's certain levels of players that really thrive in an environment at just a tier under, that don't necessarily always make it to the big time. Niall, we've seen a case in point. I'm sure you, with your fucking fantastic research that you do, could probably find a number of guys that just don't cut it when they go to that level. You know what I mean? And I think that I just think the club itself and the expectations of those fans and the history behind that club, I think it's a bridge too far for Harry Maguire personally. That's just.
And you coming in terms of shouldering the captaincy and everything and being a leader and all that, as opposed to just being a central defender.
Exactly. If he was given the expectation, say that I don't know, Eric Boyle was, you know what I mean? He'd probably thrive under that. You know, like, why isn't that level of expectancy on Varane? You know, Varane kind of gets a get out of jail free card all the time because of who he is and his past. But that's because he played for a premier team and obviously has proved it in Europe and has multiple medals to back it up. I think Harry Maguire's just not the answer. It's kind of like it's a 50-50 thing. It's like it's not his fault, but at the same time, it's his fault. You know what I mean?
Yes, I suppose it's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere
It
in the
is.
middle. And I suppose, I mean, he could easily potentially go off to a Newcastle or go off to another team and probably rediscover his form again or something like that. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how it develops. But yeah, I take your point on potentially 2 central defenders. But again, that adds to the headache again because that's another body. You know, Arsenal won, Brighton 2. Arteta seems to be falling at the final hurdle in terms of this top 4 race. Palace gave them a lesson the week before, and now Brighton's come out and beat them 2-1. They were shocking at the weekend. Granit Xhaka put in left back because Tierney's missing. Midfield, then Lokonga going in there with no experience. Odegaard playing a bit more forward. Some shocking decisions there from Arteta in terms of player selection and setup and stuff like that, and especially against a team like Brighton, who we know are so strong box to box in midfield with Yves Bissouma and stuff like that, you know. So it was a really, really poor strategy, let's say, to go up against Brighton in this way, and it was a massive game where they really needed to win it, because now Spurs are putting a bit of daylight between themselves and this top 4 race. What you're making on Arteta at the moment?
Well, shout out to Mark, who likes to usually comment in to throw jabs at me there. Mark Gren, good friend of mine, to be fair. We went to school with him. He likes to throw jabs there in the old comment section, but I'm sure Mark is probably going to agree with what I'm saying here. Listen, I personally think that Arteta's got a little bit too plucky in his squad, thinking that he can kind of make those kind of ridiculous decisions and think that they're going to come off. I look, Arsenal still have a fantastic academy and they put a lot of money into it. I can't see how there isn't someone in reserve at left back to come in and keep Xhaka in his own position. Just once, it's just the usual. It's kind of Arsenal and Spurs every season now. You know, we can tease and banter and call them bottlers, but the fact is that they are bottlers. Do you know what I mean? They really are. Like. All week we got you know, as Chelsea fans, that's it, we're coming for 3rd spot, like, you know, between the both sets of fans, and you just laugh at them at the end because they always end up with egg on their face because they always step out of their zone. Do you know what I mean? And I think you asked me about Arteta in particular. Listen, I think Arteta has potential to be a great, and he is a good manager. You know, he's definitely turned it around, you know, from where we were at the start of the season, but realistically, I do think he thinks he's a little bit better than he is, and I think sometimes he steps out of his jurisdiction with his, you know, with his just his.
Yeah, I think it's a case of managing the fan base expectation, isn't it?
Exactly. I think the fans still think that they're back in Highbury almost, and you're kind of laughing. Like, I had to laugh at Arsenal Fan TV the other day, and I know they don't speak for the collective fans of the whole club, but you know, blaming Chelsea on the loan system, like they've done that twice now. You've probably heard that. Oh well, the Chelsea loan system fucked us up on this particular match, you know, and then little did they know that like Lamptey wasn't a loanee; they actually signed him. So it's like they've almost become a little bit of a laughing stock. And like I say, I do that with banter in my heart, but also I understand how big a club Arsenal are and how passionate their fans are. So I'm not saying that just to have a jab at Arsenal. Like, the fan expectation is there, but for a reason now. They were promised, they were sold a bill of goods under Arsene Wenger. He was kind of like the Bertie Ahern of fucking football. You know what I mean? He got out of Dodge while the going was good. And even though he was getting criticism, he got out with his respect in fucking tact. And the repercussions of it have been they were given a 60,000 seater stadium. The money that they bring in is absolutely phenomenal. I believe that the tickets for some of the suites and the booths there are absolutely astronomical. They have, the tickets that the price that the fans have to pay for the tickets is unreal. But yet they don't see any of it coming into the club.
Well, I don't think that's true either, because I mean they have spent money. I mean they spent money on Ramsdale, they spent money on Ben White, they brought players in. I think they spent somewhere in the region. Is it 130 or 140 million last summer?
But what's there? But in today's economy, right. Well, then you compare them to the FSG model.
Yeah,
but it's a case that the director of football then for a vision, like what vision do Arsenal have at the moment? Like the Arsenal way we hear about all the time.
Well, I think that has changed slightly and developed over time and evolved a little bit, because now they're looking at a case. It's kind of Project Youth with a sprinkling of experience. But I think to reflect on the game at the weekend, I think it was more. I think they set it up in a way that it was Project Youth with very little experience. And I just thought it was unfair. I thought it was unfair to expect Lokonga to go into the midfield and come up against those guys like Basuma and stuff like that, who's so. I mean, Brighton's midfield is so strong, and I think basically Arteta got it wrong tactically, and that's what came to fruition basically, and that result really lies with him from a tactics point of view. But I mean they're gonna have to regroup. I'm not saying they're out of the top 4 race yet, but I mean I know they've lost Partey. I think he's gone to injury or else suspension. I'm not too sure. And I know they've lost Tierney. And they chose not to go into the market in January to provide a little bit of cover there. They chose to sit with what they had. Aubameyang went out. They kind of struggle at times to find goals. I think with him, I think he had to go. And I think, in fairness to Arsenal as well, I think they did go into the market and they did try to sign players. But I think the level that they tried to go for, I don't think it was achievable with the likes of Vlahovic and stuff like that.
But this is my point. This is my point. They huff and they puff and they try and make it look like that to appease the fans. It's the same fucking thing that we were talking about Man United. We were going in for Vlahovic. Oh yeah, why didn't you make the fucking signing then? Because if you'd have put the right money in and you'd have put the right offer on the table, you'd have got him. And the fact is,
I don't think they would have ever got him. I don't like if you're weighing up an opportunity to go to them or go to Juventus, you're going to go to Juventus, aren't you?
Okay, but you still could have went in and got someone like Isaac then, who you've been fucking, fire and bleeding lovely little love-ins for, little.
Yeah, but I think what happened was they were led down the garden path a bit with Vlahovic, and then by the time that had turned on its head, it was too late to do the deal with your man Alexander Isaac.
I think they led themselves down the garden path the same way they done with Luis Suarez, 40 million plus £1. They do this to appease the fans all the time. I've enough Arsenal fans that are friends as well that would say the same thing. Like, I'm not just having a go here. Listen, I want to see the likes of the Arsenals and all these big clubs fucking challenging again to make the Premier League even better next year. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I just think that they're a little bit like, the little Red Riding Hood kind of fucking story here where they go, oh, they huff and they puff. It's and it's their ownership and it's the fans I feel sorry for, because all joking aside, they do deserve better for the amount of money that they put in to support their club, and you can see the passion in their eyes. Like they get angry. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Let's move on. Your own club, 6-0 against Southampton. Nothing to be sniffed at there. Big win at St. Mary's. Generally not an easy place to go. Southampton again, kind of looking like a team that's kind of they're safe now, so they're kind of checked out a little bit, if you like. Ralph is kind of nearly has the boys on deck chairs at this stage. But again, never easy putting 6 goals away in a Premier League tie. Unusual place some of the goals came from as well. Frightening, scary enough. Like Timo Werner cropping up, I think, with 2.
Looking like the Leipzig fucking striker that we were meant to buy 2 years ago. Timo was actually man of the match for me, funnily enough. Hit the post and the bar 3 times, as well as scoring 2 goals.
And eventually got 2 over the line.
Well, I mean, the first goal that he scored was absolutely fantastic. I mean, that run was Timo Werner of Leipzig. You know what I mean? That was Torres-esque, running, rounding the keeper, scoring the goal. And then even the goal for Kai Havertz that he got the little tap in, that piece of play by Timo, he beat 2 or 3 defenders, hit it with venom, hit the post, and you're going, this lad's luck. And then he eventually got his tap in for the second one. But Timo was fantastic. Mount got the haircut, which I think he should never, ever grow again, because A, he's a sexy beast, and B, the hair gets in his eyes. he's about to take a cross sometimes, and he's fixing the hair. Like, I used to get slagged for that when I had long hair back in the wrestling days. Shout out to Peter Farrell, who you know very well, used to slag me. It's like, always doing that, and you don't even notice that you're doing it. Like, and poor old Mason Mount had a little video compilation made from some smart fan of him flicking his hair every time the ball comes to him. So it was no, look, all joking aside, it was exactly what we needed going into this second leg. Whatever chocolates Thomas Tuchel was eating, I would love to know the name of them so I could send a batch of them over to him. Because
certainly his having a go at the players generated the correct reaction. That's for sure. Hold fire on the Champions League. We're going to talk about it later on in the show and get your thoughts and predictions on that, of course. You know, Leeds with a big win against Watford 3-0, of course.
Huge win.
I think they're pretty much safe at this stage. And Spurs racking up a real good win. Son looking the absolute business with Kulusevski and Kane in the 5:30 kickoff, beating Aston Villa 4-0.
Gerrard has actually, I saw a stat today now, Gerrard and Lampard are similar in stats again. In fact, Lampard is 0.6 or something like that ahead of Gerrard with his win ratio. So the two boys are having a bit of a mare at the moment, aren't they?
I'm not too worried about Villa so long as they show up the last day of the season against City and Coutinho scores the winner in the 90th minute or something. Then I'll be happy.
You know what? You wouldn't doubt it, would you?
The story is being written already, my friend.
As long as they don't slip.
Yeah, game that we were talking about yesterday, this title decider game, what it was billed as. 2-2 it finished, Man City and Liverpool. So it's kind of back in City's hands now. It was in our hands yesterday at kickoff time. I mean, what was you thinking of the game? I thought we were very poor first half, all over the place at 6s and 7s. Second half, he obviously roasted them in the dressing room. They came out and they were fired up in their belly, got the equaliser early in the second half and kind of took somewhat control of the game in the second half. But these are two teams really at the top of their game, aren't
they? Look, I watched the game yesterday. I was actually really looking forward to it. I kind of had marked it in my calendar. The missus knew, and she sat and watched it with me because she knew that it was an important game to watch. Look, I said it to you, score draw. I had kind of predicted 2-2, as a lot of people had. It wasn't a miracle, prediction by any stretch, but it just had that kind of 2-2-y kind of feeling about it. You weren't
always when Sky builds up these Super Sundays and then they end up being,
what I mean?
And I wouldn't say that, don't get me wrong, it was a fabulous game. It wasn't a drab draw by any stretch of the imagination.
No. Look, it was City came out. Fuck me, they came out absolutely firing on all cylinders. Could have been a couple up, to be fair. Could have put the tie away, and we could have maybe had a 4-4 draw. I don't know. With the way Liverpool play, you wouldn't count them out coming back from that. It was fantastic. Like Kevin De Bruyne just playing the way Kevin De Bruyne plays. I thought João Cancelo is, my God, he is some player, isn't he? Just his touch and his control. He's more than just a right back. Fantastic player. But just the way City played was fantastic in the first few minutes. They get the goal and then Liverpool come back. You're going, shit, this is proper game on. Liverpool looked rattled at times, but I guess defensively, I think at times in the first half they looked a little bit rattled. They were kind of making decisions that you wouldn't normally expect Liverpool to make. But
we were somewhat nearly beaten at our own game, because what they did was they flipped the coin on us and they played the press. And what happened was they bypassed our midfield and exposed our defence. Because normally we'd be rock solid in midfield there with Hendo and Fabinho and Thiago or Keita, whoever's in there. But the midfield was taken out of it. Like, I mean, if you look at Hendo and Fabinho, it's as bad a performance as they've had all season. So what happened was the defence suddenly was in the firing line trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And it took them time to settle down and figure out what City were doing. But in reality, I called it 20 minutes in. I said, these guys are beating us at our own game. What's going on here? Like,
Yeah, there was I think the two boys for you in particular, Jota was always moving, but the two boys, obviously the wingers, Salah Mane connection wasn't really at it in the first half. There was, the balls were going up, but they weren't really executing at them as to what you would expect from them. I thought once they got the equaliser, it did change it a little bit. And then again, the defence got caught napping, obviously, for the second goal. It was actually a lovely little training ground routine.
Yeah, it was just
And
Trent
lovely finish.
Trent went to sleep.
Well, look, I mean, I was hoping you'd mention Trent because, I mean, whatever Sky Sports and their love in with English players, I mean, like, oh, Jesus, the right back. Trent is an absolutely fabulous player going forward, but he was exposed, I thought, at times yesterday.
Yeah. Man City seemed to know his number.
Yes.
And what they do is they kind of gang up on him a bit because they know, I don't know what it is. He gets a little bit sometimes nervous in these games when he gets a little bit caught out. And the Jesus goal was the perfect example because he was right there. And instead of, as you're taught as a kid, even playing football, follow the player in, always follow the player in.
And you could see the Liverpool defender saying, like, run.
He just
you could see Robertson, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Robertson was like, move.
Yeah, he just froze, and that was it. And Jesus went in, and lovely finish by Jesus as well. It wasn't an easy finish up into the roof of the net because he had Alisson coming at him a full stretch as well.
I thought Robertson had a great first half personally, and obviously that's where they target the right side because obviously defensively Robertson's a bit more solid and he'd be kind of having a go at you. Like,
well, they doubled up on him as well, and he got frustrated as well. You've seen him with Van Dijk. Van Dijk was playing balls into him. He got a bit frustrated with Van Dijk as well.
Yeah.
Van Dijk was playing balls into him when he wasn't open and stuff like that. He got really frustrated.
He looked a bit not himself yesterday at times, didn't he? Van
Dijk. Yeah. I think, do you know what it was? I think it was just a collection of the midfield being so porous and a combination of, like, we're not used to being pressed the way we press. We're normally in control of these games. So now we felt like the victim. Now we felt like the victim in these matches. Now we felt like what other teams feel when they go against us. And it was very, very uncomfortable. And at times,
remember that the next time that you're absolutely raping teams, will you?
That's
have a bit of sympathy.
We never have sympathy. This is our game.
By the way, shout out to fucking Alisson Becker on that fucking save in the first half.
Sterling one.
God. From point blank range, man. I thought they're running away with this. That to me was a pivotal moment in the game, and they're the moments that you don't necessarily make the back pages. That was pivotal because if it's 2-0 down, it's all well and good saying Liverpool can go back, but you also know then that you have to worry about the counter then in Man City, which is what they're good at. So that was, shout out to Alisson Becker. That was absolutely fantastic goal.
But I think overall it was a great game, and we push on now. Obviously, we've got Benfica midweek. I think we more or less have that done and dusted, to be honest.
Well, I'll say it. I'll say it, and a lot of people won't expect it coming out of my mouth. But at this moment, they are the two. They're the two best teams on the planet. You know what I mean? I know we're defending European champions, and look, don't sleep on Chelsea tomorrow night. But I will say, just in terms of how their managers know their squad, the stability of the squad,
the consistency of churning out game after game after
fantastic.
Game at that kind of level.
I thought that wasn't an overrated game at all. I heard some people saying it was a little bit overrated. It wasn't as excited as.
I thought it was a great game for the Premier League. Great game for the Premier League.
One of the best matches I've seen all season, personally.
Just before we get into the hot topics, just to remind people, coming up this week, we're going to have a Benfica preview. I'll be dropping that on the Shankly Sessions. It'll be going out tomorrow. We're going to have a Premier League and FA Cup preview. Myself and Darren always do that. And we'll also be doing a Beat the Bookie. It'll be a League and FA Cup combo this week because we have both League and FA Cup. And then obviously I'll be doing a preview later in the week and match reactions for the FA Cup where we play Man City again, but this time at Wembley in a one-off game, which should be very interesting to see if tactics change or if personnel change, to see what happens. So that's just a little flavour of what's coming up this week on the Upper Tier and the Shankly Sessions. Let's get into these hot topics then. We start off with footage emerging on Saturday from Ronaldo, who got a tad bit upset in the tunnel at Goodison and smacked the phone out of a supporter's hands. you know, I suppose you can understand. You can't condone it, obviously, because you're supposed to be a professional footballer. But I seen
By
video.
the way, before you complete your sentence, you're talking to Ian Kelly. Of course, I understand frustration and lashing out. So.
But I think footage released today, from the fan side of things, as well as the boys were walking down the tunnel, and the abuse was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. And you know, and I'm not speaking here on the whole of the Everton fan base, and not because I'm a Liverpool fan or anything like that. And I know there's abuse that happens.
Well, you're also speaking. Look, you're not a fan of the Man United contingent, but you're also, you know, you're speaking as a human.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, like, I can somewhat understand this, you know, the petulance of his frustration, because this is a guy who has played football at the very highest level for a long, long time, with the best teams in the world, with the most success in the world. And he finds himself at United, and you get a performance like that. And look, that performance lands at his door as well. It's not just these guys, it's him as well. And I think the whole move to United for him is just boiling over at the moment. It's been so frustrating. I think the idea was he was going to come back and lead United potentially to the promised land again and enshrine himself in the legacy of the club and all. And it's been an absolute disaster. But I think he came out, in fairness to him, he came out afterwards, he manned up and he apologised and he said he shouldn't have done it and all that. You know, that's where the kind of lies at the moment. But yeah, it was an interesting one. But those fans were going in hard. I mean, forget about what they were saying to him. The stuff that I seen today on video footage, what they were saying to Bruno Fernandes and all, walking through the tunnel and all, it was just bad stuff. Bad stuff.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I had this conversation with my better half when I showed her the video, and I kind of I was kind of seeing where Ronaldo was coming from in a sense. And then I saw obviously the picture that the father put up, and like the tiniest little bruise on the hand. My kid is 12 years old. Oh, but maybe exactly. So look, you know, we come from the pro wrestling background. Everyone knows that. You're thinking, right, if you're the heel, you're going, right, that's what you want. Ronaldo's not trying to be the heel, but unfortunately, when you are in a situation and you're in an away ground, in an important time of the season, in a time where Everton were actually fearing that they were possibly going to get relegated even, emotions are always going to run high. Unfortunately, you can't police fans' emotions. You can only police their actions after the fact. You know what I mean? But professional footballers or professional athletes or people that are paid to be role models and stuff like that, that can be controlled, right? Bite your lip, get down the fucking tunnel, and just don't give them an excuse. I understand the feeling of lashing out. I've had it millions of times where you just want to fucking deck some cunt. You know what I mean? We all have. If you had the Dazzler on tonight, he'd be telling you how he'd fucking eat someone's fucking head off if in certain situations. But I guarantee you he wouldn't do something like that. And I think, unfortunately, Ronaldo is he's had enough PR and kind of, you know, all this kind of role model training, you know, in his career that he knows that's frustration from his own performance and his own team, and he's taking it out on fans. A lot of players know how to shut it off. I see both sides of it. I don't want to be boring for your listeners here and say I'm going to sit on the fence with this one. I understand there was some horrible things probably being said. Look, there was some horrible things, by the way. I wanted to call that out by the Man City fans yesterday, to the Liverpool fans. You know, that was, you know, not called for regarding Hillsborough. There's just certain fucking places you don't go with football banter, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? That's my opinion on it, and that's it. You just don't go there ever, no matter how frustrated you are. And I think it goes for the players too. I just think Ronaldo made a mistake. He manned up, but obviously, you know, that with the little picture of whatever bruise that was supposed to be on the 12-year-old's hand, it's
Oh yeah, your man will be in a cast from his hand right down to his toe at this stage, probably. You know what I mean? But that's just that's the reality. If you take action like that, that's the reality of what you're opening yourself up to. So
exactly, that's what I'm saying with the professionalism. Just don't put yourself in those positions. But look, yeah, I mean, the Everton fans, does it surprise you?
No. Top 4 race. Is it done? Is it Spurs?
Yeah.
Think so?
I think so. Look, I don't think with 7 games to go, I don't think Chelsea are going to be caught for 3rd place. So I think it's the 4th. And I just don't see what Arsenal have that, because I mean, Conte now seems to have them kind of singing to his hymn sheet. Yeah. Obviously Arsenal had to play Chelsea. Arsenal have a couple of difficult games, don't they?
Yeah.
In their I haven't seen the run up, but I know that they've a more difficult run up than Spurs.
Well, they've to play Spurs. They've to play Spurs at the
there we go
new ground. So yeah.
Well, that's going to be a nice. That's going to be a nice little one for the neutrals, isn't it?
I'm kind of thinking if it could be quite tight going to that game, it'd be interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
It would be nice, like you know. But no, but yeah, I think Spurs will. I think Spurs will take it personally.
I think if you were having a bet, you'd be putting the money on Conte before you put the money on Arteta, wouldn't you?
He's got the know-how, hasn't he? The experience alone, and I mean,
absolutely.
Son is just in absolutely like what player for Arsenal is in that kind of form that you can almost bet he's going to score or pull you out of it. He's going to pull you out of the deep waters,
and also has the experience that himself and Kane and guys like that have there. You know
exactly. You know what I mean? So no, I think Arsenal once again are destined
they'll come up short. Yeah. Any update on the Chelsea purchase, the new ownership? I know today was deadline day, was it?
Once again, Rain Group of they did a couple of days ago after our recording, which is up now on the Chelsea Roar for any Chelsea fans that do like what I have to say. They extended it to to the 18th. Okay. But I think this is the actual definite extension. Apparently, this is the definite extension. Apparently Paluca with his mystery bidders and all were to meet with Paul Cannaville and co over the last couple of days. But it's come down to the Ricketts and Todd Bowley's group. Todd Bowley, for anyone that has been following it, he's obviously part owner of the LA Dodgers, but the actual full owner has now joined his group as well. So you're literally getting full LA Dodgers going in. And the Rickett family stuff has kind of died down, bar a couple of people on Twitter. And I think that's purely, but look, like we said on my show, the Twitter fans don't speak for the collective fan. I was
expecting a lot of these lads to rock up to St. Mary's with little election rosettes on them and scarves and hats and everything and all.
I'd have had the little American badge just on there. Yeah, 100%.
Make Chelsea great again, huh?
Yeah. Oh man, I'd have been wearing that hat. So it looks like it's a 50-50 with those two. Really, they both given the golden share, which you know what is for your listeners. The golden share is that basically there will be Chelsea fans on the board at like I think a 1% capacity or something, but it's all led behind John Terry and stuff like that. So it's the
Wonka ticket for the fans.
Basically. The Wonka ticket, yeah. So it's it's going to be interesting. Come next week, I'd say it'll probably have a bigger segment on your show. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Absolutely. So we'll wait another week. They've kept us waiting this long. We'll wait another week.
Yeah. Imagine how I feel.
Yeah. Champions League semi-final predictions. Who do you reckon's going to be the final 4 teams into the semis?
Well, you would expect a bounce back from Bayern, wouldn't you?
You would. But they've been a little bit indifferent recently, haven't they? To say the least.
I think we're both kind of looking for fences to jump on here.
To be honest with you, from a Liverpool point of view,
Liverpool.
I guess we're true.
You're home and dry.
Be a brave man who'd bet against us. Man City is an interesting one, going to Atletico with a 1-goal lead. We know how dogged Simeone can be. We know that once he presses that button, that Atletico can switch it on. There is talent there if needed. And it'll be interesting to see, first of all, what Man City side he feels, obviously, after a tough game yesterday against Liverpool. But I'm kind of expecting City to come through it. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't. Because, you know,
I wouldn't put money on the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm expecting City to go through, because I think once you've gotten to a final, you've felt that and you've experienced that and you understand it. And normally your pathway back, you have a reasonable chance.
Yeah.
In terms of Bayern and Villarreal, I would expect Bayern to go through, but you know, Emery's a master of these European toys. He just knows sometimes how to get it done and how to set up. His tactics are normally brilliant. But I would imagine the quality that's there at Bayern, not that there's a lack of quality at Villarreal, but the quality that's there at Bayern should, in theory, shine through. But who knows, if they were to give away an early goal to Villarreal, it could be uphill from there on, you know. Let's say if Muller and the boys have the desire and the fortitude, the stones, the cojones to get it done. Let's move on to your own one. Obviously, Real Madrid 3-1 up. Obviously, is back in form after 2 poor results. What you're thinking? I heard news today. Thomas Tuchel has said that Lukaku ain't traveling. That's probably music to Chelsea fans' ears.
This is like Stone Cold Steve Austin opening 2 cold ones and pouring them down that lad not being in the dressing room is a good thing. I think. We done a podcast that'll be coming out tomorrow. Myself and Alex, who has been on your show in the past, and we done a prediction. We kind of said our piece about Lukaku, and it wasn't like a hit piece on his character, on him as a person, but it kind of was, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, it's football related with your club as well. And all
exactly. Yeah. It's not talking about his personal life, but in terms of what he's done to Chelsea Football Club, I think he's uplifted us now. I think with the Roman sanctions, we've seen now that Tuchel didn't want any part in that. He would have been playing this front three, and the front three that we saw at St. Mary's is the front three that done all the devastating work under Tuchel last year with Timo Werner, Mason Mount, and Kai Havertz. Little interesting stat for all the Mount haters out there. He's only third to Son and who was it? Son and Salah. Son and Salah.
Salah, yeah.
In goal contributions this season. So that says a lot, doesn't it? I don't want to be too bravado here to have egg in my face, but I think you get an early goal in this tie and it's tie back on. 100%.
Yeah, you guys have to score first and score early, don't you? You have to put one in, say, within 20 minutes and not concede.
I am very confident that we can get the job done tomorrow. I don't know why. I don't know what's making me that confident. You know, I'm putting myself out there.
Well, you're the defending champions, so you're not gonna lie down, are you? You're not gonna just give it up.
Watching that game against Southampton, if Kante and Kovacic play with that kind of game that they had against their midfield, it will cause them problems just because of the youth and energy in it compared to how you know the age of their midfield. Don't forget they're out of they're kind of a little bit of out of options at the back with Milito is out as well. He's obviously banned. Courtois could be a saving grace, but I think we pressed them the way we did at Stamford Bridge. In fairness, there were moments. There was a 25-minute period at that game that Madrid took advantage of with 2 absolute world-class goals from Karim Benzema. He's the key tomorrow. If we can keep him quiet, then we have a real good chance. But you just don't know what Benzema's going to come up with. He's probably the best striker in the world at the moment right now.
Yeah, he's had a great season so far. But
Unbelievable.
you're quietly confident. You reckon yourselves and City in the semi-final?
I think we can get it to extra time. Yeah.
Okay. So you reckon you're going to be in the semi-final? That's what
Yeah.
you're thinking is the moment. Good show.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I think you have a great chance. I think the quality is there. I think if the team shows up, I think your midfield
Now,
is your
obviously, I'm
midfield
wearing my
is
Chelsea hat. I
yeah.
can't.
Well, I mean that's what you'd expect. I mean, like I'm not expecting you to
Yeah.
come on here and say yeah, Real Madrid all the way. You're the champions, you know. I mean, you have to go down fighting.
But I'm aware. I'm aware of the obstacle, though. You know.
Yeah, and the obstacle is huge.
Huge.
So it should be an amazing match. And it'd be even more amazing if Chelsea were to go out in the first 15, 20 minutes and bang a goal in. How interesting would that be? Let's move on then. Title race. Liverpool, Man City. How do you see it going out?
I can't fucking call it.
Mm.
It's like, on one hand, you were thinking yesterday, who does a draw benefit? You're thinking it benefits City because they still have the point lead.
Mm.
But I think looking at Pep after the game yesterday, that will have infuriated him, knowing that the chance was there to win it.
Because 4 points would have been done. 4 points would have been done.
Whereas Liverpool probably would have been happy to get the fucking point at half time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And live to fight another day.
Mm.
And I think the fact that they did it so quick, and then Hughes had the best of, I would say, the first maybe 30 minutes of the first half. Am I being too kind to Liverpool? I'd say
no. The first half they had.
No, sorry, the second half.
Second half, yeah. Second half we came into a bit more. Once we got that early goal, we started taking a bit of control of the game.
Well, I will say there was some controversy, like lucky boy Thiago. I have to say, lucky boy, because the first one could have very well been a yellow, and the second one was definitely a yellow, so that could be a red.
And Fabinho,
and obviously, and then Fabinho as well. I mentioned it yesterday. Fabinho was one of those. He's a really smart fouler, isn't he? Like, you know, he's
like Milner. He gets up and smiles at the ref, and the ref just looks at him. You know, James Milner. James Milner can foul you 5 or 6 times, gets up and smile, but because he's such a likable guy, the refs don't think he's a nasty. There's nastiness in him, and they just let it ride out. You've seen in a couple of matches this season, James Milner, he's put up 5 or 6 fouls and still not got carded.
And that's it. And like, I didn't have a pony in the race, so I'm there shouting at the TV screen, going, "What the fuck, ref? Like, that's a fucking yellow card. Like, just give the yellow card. Like, what are you doing?" Now, if it had been a Man City player doing the same thing, I'd have called the same thing. So it's just like, for me, it was kind of like, I just want to see a good game of football, and you know,
the best one I liked was when Salah took the shot going in on the left hand side and it clipped off the defender, and the ref called it as a goal kick. He didn't see the ball coming off the side of the defender. But apparently we found out later on that VAR had looked at it for a potential penalty, which means it had to have made contact with the defender. And the referee still turned around and gave a goal kick. So it was instead of a corner. So it was kind of weird.
What's the deal here?
This stuff kind of evens itself out a little bit, you know.
Look, there's always going to be those little bits of, look, if you're tunnel vision, then you're looking for the one thing. You're only looking for the one thing. For me, it was kind of like I was able to sit back and just enjoy that as a fan and not really give a fuck, because I know, like, we're coming third. So it's kind of like, all right, what's the lesser of two evils in my book, Liverpool or City? I don't really give a bollocks. That's my answer. But, like, you know what I mean? That's it. I don't give a shite. May the best team win, kind of thing. It's like when you go in and watch a boxing match and you're like, I don't really like either of them, but you know, I just hope to see a good scrap.
Good fight, and whoever wins, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it was. Now, what did you think of the VAR thing? I know there's a bit of controversy on that on Twitter today with opposition fans. It's I don't know. What say you as a Liverpool fan and answering back some of the VAR favoritism to Liverpool this year?
Look, I've been very
or referee favoritism, maybe.
Yeah, well, I've been very upfront on this all along. I think over a 38 game season, these decisions just even themselves out. And if you look at some of the decisions this season, I mean, look, we could turn around, look at the decision where Man City handled the ball against Everton and no one picked up on it, and Everton should have had a late penalty.
True.
Which ultimately could be one of the things that goes against us in terms of our league challenge, and because City are inflated potentially by 2 points. So it's, you know what I mean? So like you look at all these different things and the way they go.
Our fans, including mine and me, we go very quiet when things go right for us. That we know we're kind of like, better not look at that one. I didn't see what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Look, you know what I mean? It's same in every fan base. I think over a 38 game period and over a year of football, especially in the league like the Premier League, that's so intense and stuff like that. I think generally speaking, a lot of it evens itself out. But I think this season, I think there has been some shocking decisions in terms of the quality of the refereeing. I mean, you look at the two boys yesterday. I mean, how those two boys were picked to officiate that match, beggars belief in the first place. And now look, don't get me wrong. I think in terms of calling it, I think the VAR one was kind of weird, not giving the corner and giving the kick out. That's one that sticks out in mind. Obviously, the card issues, the Thiago and the Fabinho one, kind of stick out a bit. But I think on the balance of it, I think they more or less got it right in terms of the balance.
Well, I think the referee, in fairness, knew how big a spectacle it was and how good a game it was, and probably was trying to hold off on ruining it by, having to make that kind of decision, because you notice how quick he was to kind of go and card Thiago on the second challenge. He was like, right, I'll let you away with the first one. Yeah. I can't let you away with that again now, mate. Now, he goes and does another one and he's like, oh, no. And you're kind of going, oh, Jesus Christ, are you bottling it here or what? Yeah. So you're kind of, but then, there was a couple of challenges as well, but the City boys as well, where you're going persistent fouling will warrant a yellow card. So I think over the whole of it that he was trying to keep 11v11 for the spectacle. Not just
which I think is what both sets of fans ultimately want. They want a proper game of ball. And I think that's the way it should be in most of the league games in the Premier League. Yeah. I think it should be at that level where the referees are clever enough to go and look, we want to make this a fair contest. We understand there's a physicality to it. We understand there's a lot on the line yesterday. You're talking about a league title potentially on the line, stuff like that. So there's a lot in it. You don't necessarily want to see either sets of players getting a player sent off. But you do want the refs, in fairness, to ref the game in the proper way the game should be refed.
But the rules of the law, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think it ruined the game. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't something that ruined the game. It was like, I tell you one thing, people talk about, is this the greatest rivalry ever? If it is, it's the gayest rivalry ever with the two boys like this. They just literally hug each other.
Well, I think there's just such a respect from every single player to each other and the management teams and the coaches. And there's just a massive respect there for what both teams are doing. Because they're just operating at such a different level, both at a European level and at club level, at a Premier League, local league level as well. And I just think there's an element of respect there. And I'm sure for Pep and I'm sure for Klopp yesterday, there was an element of relief that, like, okay, we've played each other twice now. It's done now in the league. We can move on, and now let's have a battle for the last 7 games. Let's see.
Wouldn't you love to see a bit? You wonder though.
But then you see what they forgot is they have to go up against each other next Saturday again now in the cup.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Like, I wonder, like, when things that matter, if that was the final day of the season, would there be that lovely little hug, or would there be a bit more?
I don't know. I suppose it depends what way the game goes. If there isn't bad decisions in it, and if there isn't a sort of an element of too much luck or whatever it is, or deflections and all that kind of stuff, I think there is an element of respect there. And I think, look, if City run out and they win their next 7 games, I think Jurgen Klopp would be the first manager to walk up to Pep Guardiola and congratulate him on an amazing season. And all I can say is I listened to this whole thing about the greatest rivalry in the Premier League and stuff like that. For me, it's still I still believe it's really Arsene Wenger and Fergie. I think that Arsenal period with Man United, I think, was an unbelievable rivalry. But certainly they're laying down the foundation for this to go on for a number of years, even going forward. And it will, I think, in time, when you look back on it, could become that kind of, in that conversation, let's say.
I just think people have forgotten the name Jose Mourinho very quickly. It's just
no, it's not that either. But I'm just talking about in terms of when I think of Premier League rivalries and stuff like that. I know Jose is there, and I know the great things he did with Chelsea as well. But I always, I always remember that stuff with Wenger and Fergie and all, and the mind games and the two teams. And
but you had that. Like the thing is, you had a three-way then with Fergie, Wenger, and Mourinho, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, Pep and fucking Klopp now they're the golden boys.
No, but the reason I'm talking about is because this is only maybe 4 or 5 years into its progress. And remember, for a number of those years, we weren't really there. It took Klopp a number of years to get to that point where he was an actual rival to Pep. So what I'm talking about in terms of the early years, I think of Arsenal versus Man United. I know Chelsea came on after the fact, but I'm talking about because it's still kind of.
But take Chelsea out of it. Yeah. Take Chelsea out of it, and you put Wenger and Ferguson in there. There's no competition here. I mean, like, no offense to you, Liverpool won it in the COVID year once.
Yeah.
Obviously, because opposition fans will say that, and I don't deny Liverpool that. I think he's won it fair and square, and he's fucking won it. And absolutely, hats off. I don't think.
COVID affected every club, not just us.
That's what I mean.
Doesn't matter what anyone says. We won the league. It's in the history books now. So,
but it affected every club, and that's what I'm saying. And the thing about it is, people use that as a thing because there was no fans there, no kind of celebration and stuff. And opposition fans are going to use that as a knock to you boys, and that's just.
No fans on Anfield has a much greater effect than no fans at Turf Moor or no fans at at the Emirates or no fans.
100%, and I agree with that. But the point I'm making there is, it's kind of like it's Sky Sports selling of like, oh, is this the greatest rivalry of all time? And you Martin Tyler with his little poetry at the start of the match.
Well, it's the build and get conversation, because I suppose they're assuming that all things being equal for the next, say, 5 to 10 years, it looks like it's going to be the three of us entangled in this in some way, shape, or form. So I'm not excluding Chelsea out of it in any way.
Oh no, forget about Chelsea altogether. Forget about Chelsea, even from my point of view. Even forget about Chelsea for a minute. I just think the fact that they're doing that, and I'm like, if you are going to sell that, give me a bit of something. Let me see a bit of shithousery. Like, let me see Klopp turn around and say, "Shut up, you baldy little midget," or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, now that he has his fucking full-on sight and his white teeth again, like, let me see him fucking. I don't want to see the two boys before they even hug their players. Hug each other like they're like Bert and Bruno, literally coming out of the fucking shower together, going, man, I love you. Do you know what I mean? Like, come on, Jesus Christ Almighty! I wanted to see a bit more fucking. I don't know, and I'm sure fans agree with me. A lot of fans do agree with me, albeit they're on Twitter, and I always say Twitter's not real life. So what the fuck do I know?
Absolutely.
By the way, great fucking game yesterday. Absolutely. Best game I've seen in a long time. The two best teams in the world, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. Let's finish up. Relegation battle. I think we can assume that Norwich and Watford are down at this stage. So we're really talking about, say, Burnley or Everton. I suppose you have to back Frank, don't you?
Listen, after Sean Dyche's fucking comments, he can go fuck himself as far as I'm concerned. Little loudmouth, soulless ginger. So, come on, Fat Frank.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's a weird one for me because, a lot of people would expect me as a Liverpool fan. I don't necessarily want Everton to go down. I do like the Merseyside derbies.
You just don't know what would happen if they did go down. And look, I'm only.
We know what's gonna happen if they go down. It's gonna be Leeds Part 2, isn't it? You're not gonna see them for a long time because that championship. That's
the problem. That's the problem. And like I say, Sean Dyche is soulless, but Sean Dyche is doing what he needs to do. Do you know what I mean? I'm calling him out because he's calling my boy Frank out. So sorry, Sean, you're in the fire line. You are a ginger soulless fuck because of the context. Yeah. But No, 100%. Like Everton are a very, very important football club within the Premier League context. The same way that Leeds were, the same way that someone like
massive history.
Absolutely, the same way like a Leicester were that need to be back. I mean, I look upon clubs like Coventry City. I know people might laugh at that, but Coventry were like a staple. You know, in like you look at Darren Huckabee and all before he got sold to Leeds, Robbie Keane, players like that. People forget like that they were a staple. People forget that the likes of Nottingham Forest and all. Like, look at these massive clubs like Nottingham Forest, like still down there. You know, not back up in the Premier League yet. These are
Goes to
massive
show how competitive the Championship is.
Exactly, and that's what I was just going to say to you. That's what would happen to the likes of an Everton if they go down, because there isn't that money anymore. That you know, not that we know of. I don't believe it is. You know, their major backer has obviously been sanctioned. So it's kind of, I think it is important, because I do believe Burnley and a Sean Dyche would get them back up pretty quick. Personally, because of
yeah,
just I think he has the know-how. He's kind of got that Sam Allardyce about him now. You know what I mean?
I think he probably would, but again with Burnley as well, I think there'd be a number of players that they would probably lose, and they might find it difficult. That Championship is just so competitive.
But then there's a number of players that they would have, like, I mean, with their financial kind of side of things, because of the Premier League money, they'd probably be able to go down and poach some of the top players in the Championship and then kind of
possibly
replace just in bits. I'm not saying like they wouldn't need a rebuild, but like that one or two players that, you know, they
get them over the line.
Lose. Yeah. But I think it's and I'm glad Leeds are going to stay up, even though I hate the club. I'm glad they're staying up because they're an important club. And when I say hate, like you hate Everton, we hate them because of rivalries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Everton will stay up. I think Frank will get the job done, and I think it's ridiculous that we're talking about getting rid of him when he hasn't really been given a proper full pre-season or whatever. Judge him next season. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but safe to say it's turning out to be a great season. I mean, between the title race, between the top four race and the relegation battle, and the fact that not everything is decided yet makes it very exciting with 7 games to go. So it's brilliant to have it. Well, anyway, my friend, a pleasure having you on. This has been the Monday Mashup on the Upper Tier Podcast out there on YouTube. Audio versions show Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you want to contact the show, uppertierpodcast@gmail.com. Also, head over to Ian's channel, the Chelsea Roar. Drop a sub on there if you're a Chelsea fan or you just want to go banter him up with his thoughts on his videos and stuff like that. Again, we're on Facebook and Instagram, the Upper Tier, and you'll also get us on TikTok, I should say, the Upper Tier. Having a lot of fun out there at the moment. Till next time, my friend. A pleasure.
I appreciate it, brother.
Cheers, bro.